Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. The Titans got a win in Houston on Sunday, 32-27 over the Texans. Will Levis, 18 of 24, 278 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Tony Pollard had a 100-yard game rushing. Calvin Ridley led the way in receiving with 93 yards on 5 catches. Touchdowns of 70 yards to Chigakonkwo and 38 yards to Nick Westbrook-Akine. And the Titans are 3-8 on the season. The Texans drop to 7-5. Brian Callahan met with the media recapping the game earlier today. He also said they expect to open cornerback Chidobe Awuzie's practice window, return to practice this week, as the corner has been on IR in the last few weeks. Coming up tonight, the Nashville Predators are at the New Jersey Devils. That is a 6 p.m. puck drop. And Monday Night Football, Jim versus John Harbaugh. Ravens at the Chargers. It's the first matchup with the Harbaugh brothers on opposite NFL sidelines since Super Bowl 47 between Ravens and Niners. Kickoff at 7:15. You can listen to the Westwood One coverage with pregame starting here on The Zone at 7. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Feels good to hear that music and be back in the chair, even though I do miss the beach and the ocean and the pool and my mango margaritas that I had. But it feels good to be back, especially after a Titans win.
Where'd you go?
Victory Monday. I went to the Bahamas and Chub Key, and it was beautiful.
Chub Key?
Chub Key.
Where,
you know what they do down there? Everything it's spelled K-C-A-Y, but they call it Key. And it's a really hard habit to break when you're new.
You would have confused me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm easily confused there. Luke,
but it was awesome. It was amazing. Had a great time. It was me and my wife have been together. That was kind of our 4-year anniversary / honeymoon. So if that tells you how long we've been together and have not been able to go on vacation. So it was great. I missed everybody except for P96, who badmouthed me in the chat, and I caught him saying that he was glad I wasn't here. I took notes.
I didn't respond.
I got into the chat and took some notes, took some names down just to make sure that they were called out.
You did. Oh, man. That's the athlete in you. You're taking names.
Yeah. Steve in the chat, when I responded in the chat at one point, I was telling Lucas turn the lights on in the studio, and Steve Lamb in the chat said, this is why no one should call in and take relationship advice for you, from you, because you're on your honeymoon and you're in the chat. I said, or should they be taking advice from me because I got away with it? See? See, there's a different side to every story. But no, me and my wife had a great time.
The Lion is back.
And we're back. I'm back. Got a lot to talk about because I thought the game yesterday was really good. It was really fun. There were some things some negatives. There's some positives. And I just really, Blaine, want to get your overall thoughts real quick on Buck Rising on his show last week, saying that NWI, he would take NWI over so many wide receivers, including guys like A.J. Brown, and DJ Moore. Like, where are you at on that?
Oh, man. Naturally, Luke was on here. I thought he was going to go down that road, and Luke was like, no, I'm on the total other side of that.
With conviction. I don't know if you've seen the clip. Or I
did. I was actually listening, and I turned the volume when I heard him start that. I go, oh, my.
It may be the worst take of all takes. Now, listen, NWI is a fine wide receiver, too, but you can't put him in a conversation with wide receiver ones here. Yeah. I mean, it was and I'm trying to explain it to my wife, and she's just looking at me like I'm speaking another language. But, like, when I saw that, I was like, I have to talk about that at the top of the show because that is the most ridiculous thing I think I've heard. That would make even, like, Colin Cowherd, be like, whoa. That's too much of a hot take.
Yeah, so what he was saying was NWI was better than all those guys.
And he's only using the touchdown metric. He's not using any other stat that proves otherwise. And listen, NWI is putting together a really solid year that is going to force me and my wife to actually buy you and your wife dinner. And I'm happy with it because it's fun to watch.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, I appreciate players like NWI who continue to fight and they bring in higher draft draft pick guys and all that. He's kind of worked his way to, showing he can be a 2 at times, but I think he's more comfortable being that outside guy where he can now, nobody's focusing on him. And really, they just look at his talent. They go, oh, man, I'm going to have an easy week. And then he goes out there and shows them a little bit more than that. And then they kind of get toasty roasty. That was a double move he had in the game. But, no, I appreciate it.
A really good, effective double move, too.
Well, it was one of those ones that's quarter, and it's easy to get the safety. The way you defend that, I used to, since I played safety, I used to say, I'm going to be aggressive nature, and I'm driving that dig. So just know. So here's what the corner's supposed to do when he just has the third. Then if they double move me, you ride me over the top. So those are the general conversations you have amongst players. The coach ain't telling you that hey, he was still in the deep third, your quarter, you gotta have him. So that way I could never not be aggressive nature. So I'm gonna get a pick, or he's gonna double move me. I'm gonna collision him. That's my style. I'm gonna collision him, act like it was an accident.
Yeah.
And then, he double moved. I bet I'm not gonna grab. I'm going to just, give him a little thump along the way, because now I want to mess up timing. He won't be at the spot he needs to be, giving my corner time to get there over the top. They didn't do either one in Singletary. I don't know even if it was his fault or not. I really believe it's the safety's fault. I know the commentators on air said it was the cornerback's fault, but great route. They had set that up over the weeks. They've been running that dig right there in curl. So, it was well designed. They did a good job coaching. But my thoughts on the game, I'm a little conflicted. I'm not going to give you, it was a great game. It was a great game only because they won. Now, I think one team, had a winning record and the Titans didn't. But it was a game where the Tennessee Titans, the whole game, both teams were up and down. So I'm going to say up and down, which means turnovers, sloppy play, and all that. Now, as a fan, when I'm watching, I'm on this roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, my God, I go from a high to a low to, oh, man, we're going to lose. The kicker makes them go, oh, man, this is great. So, you go through all that. But I thought it was too many sacks, special team snafus, penalties. I thought Levis looked good, and he looked great at times, and then he just looked okay at times. Only real issue now that I see with him, he's still a beat later sometimes, but he was at least on time a lot of the time. I think he needs to go through his head is right now he needs to just say, first read not open, know my outlet. Don't try to go to 2, not all the time.
Yeah.
So I think he needs to get to there, and because a couple of those sacks, I felt like it was somewhat on him. I still don't like his pocket presence. Now, he had a good game, but he doesn't have a natural feel for the pocket when he goes back there and he feels pressure. I think when he feels the pressure, that's the only thing he has pocket presence with. He doesn't feel it then where to maneuver still with his eyes down the field. He becomes immediately a runner. So if you're going to be that way, then just take off then. Just take off sooner than later.
Callahan, and my takeaway from that, because I agree with the pocket presence.
Yeah.
But my takeaway was like on some of these plays, I think he's been coached to take up running to not lose bigger yardage.
Right.
And I do agree that he's got to learn. He's got to learn that, and that's really hard for someone to learn right now. Now there are ways, because I read our good friend Michael Silver's book, The Why Is Everything. That's all about, and I'm going to probably beat this. He needs to pay me is how much I'm going to mention this book. I read it over the weekend, and it's all about the Shanahan tree, but you get real insight into how they view quarterbacks and how they view certain things and how players prepare. And Nick Mullins, back when he got drafted, was using VR before anybody else and staying out on the field at home or after practice, after games, put on a headset with loud music and was playing VR and playing some of the plays that they practice and all this kind of stuff using a program called Striver out of Harvard. And so there are ways that you could do it because he was doing it in season. But, right now, I would look at it like this, is that I thought his pocket presence was better. It's still not where it needs to be.
Well, he's at the second level now.
He's at that little bit of a level. And I think that what he was trying to do is like, hey, these guys are around me, and from the last few times that I've tried to make a throw, I put the ball on the ground or in the air in a touch or in the end zone. I think he's trying to just, if I can break an arm tackle or anything, maybe I turn into a big play. And I think that's that sounds like what Callahan kind of said today, that he's coached into him. And we're going to talk about the sacks because I find them all very interesting and situationally. And I do think there's probably 3 you could put on Will Levis. And one of them, he's just got to start throwing the ball away, especially when he's out of the pocket. That's just something he has not been able to do for whatever reason.
I think he just didn't want to make a mistake. I think that he's not even I mean, he's just,
it looked like he thought he could outrun the guy that was pursuing him, and he couldn't. But I do think that what we saw from the Chargers game to the Vikings game to now is still very good progression. I think he took his biggest leap. We've been talking about growing pains, and I think this extends to not just, Will Levis, extends to the wide receivers, the tight ends, the defense, the coordinators, the coaches, all this stuff. And it feels like yesterday they kind of hit that growth spurt. And there could be an element that maybe the Texans just melted down. But also, if you look at what the defense did from first half to second half, it's phenomenal. I mean, it is amazing. What they finally stepped up. And I'm very excited. I'm going to be very positive. But I do agree with you. There's a lot you still got to clean up with this team. But it's better to start cleaning messes up from a win than from a loss.
No doubt. No, I was pleasantly happy. I predicted that they would lose the game 24-17 on the pregame show. They played really well. The Texans are going down of a slump, and C.J. Stroud is hitting that sophomore jinx now. This is 3 games in a row he's looked like that, and he didn't respond. One thing about the Titans, they responded to all the snafus in this game, all the negative plays, and they responded. And, I don't know if it was more so the Texans that they won the game or it was more so them. But one thing I can say is they kept pounding the pavement. They kept going after it, and Levis was the biggest piece in part to all of that. So have to give him credit for all that. I like Levis. I love people who work hard, who are trying to get somewhere. We are seeing him grow these last 3 weeks. And I want to say this. I think losing to the Vikings, a really good team that is a good team, really said, we are not that far away, and it was positive affirmation after a loss. And they looked different out there because Jackson fumbled the ball. I mean, they made mistakes all over the place. They just didn't make the last one. So, I'm super excited. I'm sure the organization is, and I think this team in another year, just imagine if they get a couple pieces, some guys stay healthy, on defense, man, they're not that far from being a real good team. I'm just saying that. Now, Levis still has to go into next season, and it's still more evaluation as far as he's the guy next year. I think he can continue this. Should be the barometer where he's at, right here. That he should never go lower than this. That doesn't mean he may have a bad game here or there, but on average, he should look like how he's looking in just a solid day. And so hopefully he's getting comfortable where now he can just let his talent take over, and that's what it looked like.
100% agree. And we're going to open up the phone lines here, 615-737-1045. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about the game. We're going to talk about the sacks and all that stuff. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 1045 The Zone. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons as a song about Oklahoma gets played, but we're powered by all Four Seasons garage doors. Slap in the face. I've been nothing but nice to Jackson, and he has to do that to me just because Alabama dropped.
I watched that game, and I immediately said,
"Your guy Milroe."
Yeah,
I know you don't like that. I know you don't. I know you don't. I told you, as a thrower, he is not that guy.
I mean, my buddy Mike Kernan put him at quarterback 1 a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, you are an insane person. Like, you need to watch more Alabama games. That's
All
what
I think
told
about
him.
when I watch him, and he's a better athlete than Jalen Hurts, is that he has to go through that, school of passing the football, being accurate, and then let his athleticism. So he has to go do some training offseason. If not, he won't be the quarterback at Alabama next year.
I think he's got to come back.
He's got to come back. I just don't think he's going to be with Alabama.
Yeah, maybe not be.
Because if you really watch them, they've seen Penix do it.
Yeah.
And so they know what this offense is, and he's just not that polished of a passer, at least as of right now.
Right.
So that I don't know if they're going to stick with him, or they may say, hey, man, they have a better shot in probably a different offense because they throw the ball. To me, there's times I think Alabama should run the ball more. But
yeah. We got Dixie in the chat says Milroe, Justin Fields, and I feel like that's even generous because I thought Justin Fields was at least a better passer than Milroe.
Yeah,
I didn't think Justin Fields was a great passer.
Right, at this point
but
in time.
I didn't think he was better than Milroe at this point. But I understand what he's saying.
Yeah.
Like, to me, Milroe is kind of like Jalen Hurts. You got to build around. He's a quarterback you got to build around, and maybe he needs to sit as well. And Hurts went second round, and I still think that he was probably a second round talent coming out of anyway. Mm-hmm. And that's where I kind of put Milroe as like that second round, third round tier.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, back to the Titans though, and talking about future quarterbacks and quarterback situations. I thought that Will Levis. We talked about before I went on vacation about how Will Levis is kind of like, I think he's a better chance of him proving that he's the guy in 2025 than him being the guy 2025 and beyond. And that's kind of where that performance yesterday kind of cemented that stance. I now think that's the likeliest scenario. Mm-hmm. Now that comes with the caveat, right? Like what we've talked about all year with Will Levis is that he has to be consistent. And we kind of like you said that performance yesterday is now the barometer. If he even flatlines from here, from yesterday's performance and gives you that performance every day, every Sunday that he plays, that's fine. That's still a guy you can carry in 2025 and use all those draft picks to build a team instead of using those draft picks to get maybe quarterback 1 for your future because this is not a good draft class.
No, I'm hoping that they go, pass rusher, tackle, receiver, corner, whatever they need. I go and get the other pieces to help him continue. At least buy him some time and he plays good enough like he's done the last 3 weeks, I think, to buy them some time to continue to evaluate and build pieces around him. So, what'd you think about MPF?
Not bad. I mean, okay, let me rephrase that. Bad, but not terrible. How about that? Bad, but not terrible. I did see him put some people in the ground. Now they were cornerbacks.
Right, exactly. I'm like, he pushed him and then ran out. I mean, that was
at least he put someone in the ground.
Oh, that was soft. He pushed him and then ran. Man, that was like BS. That's one, you go back to up like, man, y'all go get him, man. Sick him, man. That was BS. You gonna mess. That's like messing with.
I thought it was gonna be way worse for NPF.
6'5" versus 5'10". I mean, come on, really?
I thought it was interesting that it felt like they were attacking J.C. Latham more than they were attacking the right side of the line. I just thought that was very interesting that is what D'Amico Ryans and them kind of saw on tape was like, okay, maybe they're gonna put help over on NPF's side, so we're gonna go to the left and just beat down on J.C. Latham, beat down on the rookie. Right. And then the rookie looked like a rookie. That's the first.
He went to get a pure, great pass rusher, and that's what I was worried about.
Yeah,
the speed element and his short setting. Instead of he tries to go get them, instead of, no, I know where my quarterback is. I go backwards, and then when we engage, now I let my power take over.
Yeah.
Because he can anchor. Once he gets his claws on you, it's over. And, Hunter, man, he can do a spin move in his dreams. I mean, I can't even do a spin move standing right here on my own on the air. So these guys are super talented. Anderson as well. So, the 8 sacks, a couple of them really probably on.
Hey, no sacks in the third quarter is really weird. They all came. There was 3 in the last minute. of the second half or the first half, but there were 0 in the third quarter. So, and only 1 in the entire second half. So they kind of settled down a little bit, but they also ran the ball more. So that was another.
And Pollard had a great day. Here's the question though: did Levis outplay C.J. Stroud? And that is even crazy that we even are saying that there was a possibility of that. And I think he did.
I would side with you because I think that here's what you've heard, right? After the game, 5 different Texans players in the press conference and everything said we have to go look in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
When you got 5 different players relaying that message, that means that's what they were told by their coach at some point. Mm-hmm. And that's the feeling that they got to go do. That's a deflating loss for them. And one of those was C.J. Stroud. The other thing is players were fighting with the fans from the sidelines apparently throughout the game.
Oh, I didn't
know. Yelling and bickering back at their own home team fans.
But you could hear the fans booing them throughout the entire game. Uh-huh.
Yeah. I think that Levis, if you were to just look at this game in a vacuum, not know anything about C.J. Stroud, not know anything about Levis, it was just quarterback 1 and quarterback 2. Yeah. Levis was the better quarterback.
No preconceived notion about nothing.
No preconceived notion. Mm-hmm. Levis was the better quarterback. He looked like a vet. He didn't let his stuff, he didn't let anything shake him. Mm-hmm. It was the third or fourth win in NFL history. Is the third win in NFL history where a quarterback has been sacked 8+ times and threw a pick 6 and won the game.
That's the first time?
That's the third time.
Oh, third time.
But still, there was like 59 times or something like that. It was an insane stat. To me, Levis played better. There's just no other way around it. Mm-hmm. That was the first time C.J. Stroud has thrown an interception in his short career, to the AFC South defense.
Yeah, they were talking about, that was
and he threw it twice, and they were bad interceptions. These were, Kenneth Murray, of course, went up and got his, but that was still a bad throw. And then, he threw it right to Jarvis Brownlee Jr. I thought Jarvis Brownlee Jr. was going to be so shocked that he was going to drop it.
That was a bad ball. When he threw that one, and when they showed the replay, I go, man, he was nowhere near the receiver. It was just a sharp 5-yard curl. He missed him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, my. I said, he's in his own head, and, he's starting to second-guess himself.
Well, they took away the run game.
Yeah.
And I think when you take away the threat of the run game, and with a Bobby Sloak who comes from the 49ers and a defensive head coach, they're going to struggle. And this was a sublime run defensive performance from the Tennessee Titans. I thought that
was the key. Stopping Mixon was the key.
Yeah. And now everybody's going to know that, and they play Blaine. They have the Jaguars coming up this Sunday where Trevor Lawrence is starting to practice today. This is Texans. Then they have a bye. Then they have Miami, Kansas City, Baltimore, and then the Titans again.
Uh-oh. I hope the players for the Titans know this. I'm sure the coaching staff does.
Think about that. That's a tough road for the Houston Texans.
The way they're playing now.
Yeah. And I know that Bobby Sloak, last year when he was interviewing for those head coaching jobs, in his pressers, he's not a very personable guy. Mm-hmm. And he kind of has rubbed. He comes from that Shanahan tree. Shanahan kind of rubbed everybody the long way when he was coming through the ranks and everything. He's kind of doing it too. And I do wonder if these defensive woes or offensive woes continue, is Bobby Sloak even going to have a job? Because they got to win some games down the stretch, and they got to win games against some good teams. And listen, this is kind of what I said about the Houston Texans, right? Like C.J. Stroud, sophomore slump. But there's a Bobby Sloak sophomore slump, too. Yeah. And it's going to be real interesting to see how they continue to adjust if other teams take away the run. Because, obviously, that's the best way to go about it is stop Joe Mixon.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He was key. We had Sean Salisbury on, my former teammate there at the end of his career, and he says Mixon has been the MVP. But one thing I didn't take into account, the running back is coming off a short week. He didn't look as explosive as he looked on film because I watched it. I was like, oh, my God, he looks like the best version of him with the Bengals. I hadn't seen him run like that in a long time. But we have to give kudos to yours truly, Nick Folk.
Yeah.
Man, he made some big-time kicks there from outside of 50 yards, which is not his cup of tea usually. So those 3 field goals there were really huge. Defense had some explosive plays along the way. even against them. But, man, they didn't back down. Bronley is going to be a really good player. He just got to get a little more patient at times, but his aggressive nature will help him, but it also got to understand can hurt you.
Yep.
So once he figures all that out, but as a young player, man, you got to love him. Chig, naturally, that big 70-yarder, oh, my. He was scooting. But I'm interested how you view with your film study on the pick six by Levis.
Okay, so obviously he to me, I look at it and I go, I understand what he was trying to think. He thought he was going to get one coverage, and really he got that coverage, but what he didn't expect was Jimmy Ward not to follow Tyler Boyd in the middle of the field. Mm-hmm. And the problem is, whether Jimmy Ward had followed him or not, the throw was bad. It was way behind NWI, so it wasn't going to matter. It was going to be an incomplete, but the problem is that Jimmy Ward stayed, and then he continued to throw a bad ball where Jimmy Ward was able to go and get it. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of those instances where we talk about where you have to be able to get to your second read quicker. And to me, that was a little bit of a processing issue more than it was anything else. And I really thought after that pick six, I was like, it is over. I really got down in the dumps. I was like, I don't know, because we've seen Levis not be able to come back from it.
Yeah. There was a part of me, I thought, let's see how he responds, man. I'm real big on how you respond to failure or some type of adversity. So that
what did you think? Because this wasn't kind of like a Jair Alexander situation, because there's nobody on the Texans except for Stingley kind of like that. It was zone, and Ward played him. He acted like he hugged the first slant, the number 2 guy Boyd, and then he came off immediately. He played him, and
just
he's
like
watching
the whole
Levis's eyes and
the
head
whole time. Yeah, he used his feet, watched him, and then moved, and boom, and man, I wish it would have been even a worse throw, even more so behind. I don't think he would have caught it, because he had to double catch it, because he couldn't get it clean because it was such a bad throw. But we have to say this on another positive note: most points since 2021 Week 7 by the Tennessee Titans with the 32 points.
Hey, they scored 30 points twice this year.
21 there, Jackson.
Think about this: they've scored 30 points twice, and both times they got a safety.
Oh,
isn't that kind of crazy?
Oh man! And CJ Stroud running out of his, I'm like,
Yeah.
Dan Orlovsky. That's all I can think.
I thought, first off, Tavondre Sweat played exceptional.
Oh, he got his first sack.
Yeah, got his first sack. He got a sack, tackle for loss, quarterback hit. Harold Landry, sack, tackle for loss, quarterback hit. Jeffrey Simmons, sack, tackle for loss, quarterback hit. Like, this was a very get-right game for that defensive front.
They're inside, interior. I'm going to just say that great job, but the center guard triangle there for the Texans is a weak link, and I knew that they were going to have – so they were going to be able to control those guys, but I didn't think they'd play like that. They dominated.
They dominated. I mean, Tavondre Sweat was just on fire. I was just thoroughly happy with him. And going back to Jarvis Brownlee Jr., I brought this up. Now, he wears gloves. If I was Jarvis Brownlee Jr., I would always make sure that my gloves match the color of the jersey that the opponents are wearing.
Does
that work, you think?
Yeah, well, I saw everybody talking about that. That's, I don't know.
Can't wear those bright red gloves.
Yeah, why would you do that? I mean, man, you got to be smarter than that. You know what, really, why they do that? Because they want to be cool and match their uniform and bring out the more red and show. Well, guess what? You're also showing where you're holding. And now that the referees go right to that. I'd be wearing the color of the jersey of the team I'm playing.
Yeah.
I'm
with you. That's how I would be doing it.
But, the dudes, we used to say that all the time. Every week, I'm like, why are you wearing that color? But, nobody's telling people what to wear. And
really, he had a good game. He had 3 passes defended.
He had that one on that deep dig
too.
On Dale. That was a big play.
Yep.
That was a big play. I know he got toasted, too, by Nico Collins. Boy, when he got in open field, he hit another gear. And I was like, oh, my.
Yeah.
I don't think we want to be missing Nico.
And no Amani Hooker.
Collins.
And they did all this without Amani Hooker.
Yeah, and the rotation there is safety. You got to give him credit from Woods to what's the number 35's name they just signed?
Daryl Worley.
Worley, yeah. Worley. Yeah, they did a fantastic job, man. Got to give kudos to Rand and crew, who's all involved in bringing in those different players. And Hooker was, I guess, sick. Yeah, so man, just all around great effort and great game. And luckily they got a chance to win one like that win. They still didn't play perfect. Here's what happens in the meeting rooms when you win a game. There's more MFing going on in a win than in a loss.
Mike Vrabel, that was the big thing about him. He was always more pissed after a win than a loss.
And that's exactly how the coaches are in the meeting, because they don't want you to be, resting on your laurels and all, thinking you arrived, especially this whole generation of players. So, yeah, this is when they go and we could have played a lot better. Each room is talking about what you could have done. And, man, we still won. This is great. But, hey, we got to improve here or there. When you lose, it's kind of like, dang, man, we should have done this. It's on us as the coaches. We didn't, coach you enough. It kind of reverses. So I know people are all happy and everything. Players are, still excited about a win, but you want to walk out of there saying, man, dang, I could have played better. Yeah. Every player should be walking out of there, including Levis, of course, and even the coaching staff, that they could have done better. So that's kind of how it works. So nobody's sitting over there and, oh, yeah, we played great. Every player knows that they didn't play perfect, because that's almost impossible. Right. But I was always striving for that perfect game.
So let me ask you a question. Kenneth Murray played a pretty good game.
Yeah, he did. And they said they switched.
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask you. So what do you think, why do you think the switch prompted Murray to have arguably his best game of the year? And why moving him from, I guess, weak side linebacker to middle linebacker, Mike, why do you think that switch mattered so much? And because really I would have think that Jerome Baker also has to get used to playing his spot as well, because he's switching to the weak side as well. Why do you think that helped him so much?
Well, first and foremost, I think Murray's the more physical, bigger presence guy, and it freed him up. And now he's not being a liability in coverage. And Baker's kind of the more athletic, weak side guy. He's kind of that Keith Bullock. He's not Keith Bullock, but I mean, in this scheme of things, just to help people in reference of understanding what position he's playing on the weak side. So he's then always in coverage versus the tight ends, the backs, maybe sometimes even receivers in the slot. And I think it's more natural for him to be there, where Murray is more natural of see ball, go get ball, than cover someone in space. Not to say that he can't do it because he's a good athlete, but that's still not one of his strengths. So I thought it was a great move. Didn't know that actually happened, but I was wondering how Murray was then. You saw him run freely on a backside throw and got his hands on one. I thought he should have picked another one. And I was like, dang, where did he come from?
I know.
And then when they showed the replay and they paid the back end zone view, you could see like, dang, how far he ran to get there. And he eyeballed, because why? He was the free guy, and that's where he's best. So, man, that was a great move by, I'm assuming, Frank Bush, the linebackers coach, and the defensive staff there. So that was huge. And I think that's going to work out, and I think they're going to be happy with both of those guys in those spots moving forward.
It was just so interesting, because you didn't really see the defense lined up, and I guess you weren't really looking at the linebackers, because they always get very lost.
Right.
But when you start watching all 22, you start noticing Jerome Baker on the side that Kenneth Murray's usually on, and I'm like, oh, they did do that. Because when they said it, I was like, did they? Mm-hmm. Because I know the interception was on the left side, I guess the right side of the field, depending on where you're looking at it. But so I was always thought that he was playing in the same spot. Does being the middle linebacker, or the Mike, does that make things easier, I guess, from a diagnosing purpose, or maybe what's on your plate purpose?
I can't really say that. I would just say it's more natural.
Gotcha.
And what you're trying to do, it's like, you're trying to make a cover corner a cover two corner.
Gotcha.
And now he has to do a lot more tackling. He's got to come up and be the force. So now they're at positions, and it probably happened when they got him. It's like, man, eventually we want to move him. But right now, we got to have him behind both, or Gibbons, and, whoever gets injured, he can go into either one, Baker, that is. So then once you realize, okay, this is where we want to have them set, this is more natural fit for them and with their skill sets, then that's when guys usually take off into a whole nother ring. And we saw it live and in action. Now, it's almost like, why wasn't he there in the beginning? But, you're trying to put the two best players out there, and that's what happens with coaches. We want to put our best talents out there, maybe not the best fit for them personally, where it's just naturally occurring and they don't have to think. And then they're not put in positions where they're always caught in coverage.
Right.
I thought it was a great move. Wish they would have, wish they would have had Baker and been able to do it sooner than later. But, people were isolating Murray too, I think, to a certain extent. I know everybody thought that was his fault on that one touchdown, but that wasn't even his fault.
Yeah.
He showed his range even then to be in that picture that looked like he got toasted.
Well, when we come back, we're going to talk about the special teams play and what we thought about that. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop, Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
Hey, this is Blaine Bishop, and I want to know if you have heard about peptides. And peptides are shaking up the fitness world. They are naturally occurring aminos in our bodies. So as we age, they start to decline. And at some point, they may need to be supplemented. This is why our workouts can stop being productive at the gym. So maybe you feel like you've hit a wall, or perhaps you feel tired all the time. You may be struggling to stay awake in the evenings when you get home from work. Well, if you feel the thought that this is just the normal part of aging, it doesn't have to be that way. Peptides are proven to increase muscle and performance, burn fat, and help with recovery between workouts and more. Peptides can even help with motivation and mental clarity. And these are all safe, naturally occurring aminos, not pharmaceuticals. A natural and holistic way to get your body back to peak performance. Plus, Edge Peptide Therapy has the most comprehensive blood panel around. So when you go to Edge, you will know exactly what is going on inside of your body and what it needs to get back to peak performance. So feel better from the inside out. So go to edgepeptide.com. Yes, that's edgepeptide.com. Or you can just give them a call at 615-724-1878. That's 724-1878.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Store, 615-737-1045. If you want to get in on the conversation as we're talking Tennessee Titans today with a 32-27 victory over the Houston Texans. And Blaine, special teams, okay, so that very first kickoff, they stopped the guy, or at least cloud the lanes and everything and make it murky. And then Cedric Gray just couldn't make the tackle. And then that guy busted out to the outside and all this kind of stuff. And it was an 80-yard return, and there's another mistake. And now, granted, this is Cedric Gray's first play ever in the regular season of the NFL. And so he's probably prone to make mistakes, but you would think that guy, you got to make that tackle. And especially when you have that situation. And then you have Jaquan Jackson. Listen, I've been a big detractor of Jaquan Jackson since he got drafted. And I understand that Tyke Tolbert really liked what he saw when he went out there to his pro day and what he saw on film and all this stuff. And they went and got, a guy in the round for Tyke Tolbert that he thought could do something. But these decisions that he continues to make in the moment are very puzzling. Sometimes he's bringing the ball out when he shouldn't be. He should let the ball, go for a touchback. Sometimes he's doing something like he did yesterday. And now listen, I understand that you want to kind of be aggressive, but in the moment, you got to read the room of what is going on in the game and understand that what's best for your team is just to take the fair catch in a crowded environment like it was.
Yeah, that one he fumbled, man, I've been back there. Man, I thought he should have just secured the catch. And I thought he could actually still run. But I think he tried to run before
while
he caught it.
Yeah,
and that's what got him. He felt the pressure, but he also thought he could get through, and he was trying to hurry up and get there before doing the most important thing, which is securing the ball. So it's still somewhat of a guy who's back there. He looks natural and everything else. I just think he was rushing, trying to make a play. So I'm going to give him, a little slack there on that one. And they still won. But a great lesson learned. If he does again, I'll be perturbed if I'm coaching in a special team, especially because the special teams, they just keep finding bad things to mess up. I mean, different things all over the place. So that there is something that you want to feel very comfortable with. It's a tough job catching punts. It's probably one of the toughest things to do on the field, catching those punts from these specialized kickers now, and they can move the ball in the air and it kind of go away from you, and you got to be able to read it really well. But he's a natural at it. I just think he just tried too hard to make a play and run without securing the ball. So I'm gonna give him a break, and we'll see where it goes. But it could have been a travesty in this game what he did. So hopefully we can learn and still win, as you mentioned earlier today.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is that, Brian Callahan said today that, about pulling or benching Jaquan Jackson, he doesn't feel that's the best way to handle your players.
Oh, yeah. See, that's how I feel. I never agree with that premise what Vrabel would do. Yeah. Not at the pro level. That's what you do in college. Who else are you putting out there that you feel better about? If not, they would have been out there.
Right. And now maybe this week you change something up, but during the practice or something. But I still think I'm with you. I wouldn't. But if there is the opportunity for change comes in the week from game to game, not during the game. Because I don't think that it benefits anybody, because then you're putting someone out there that's cold.
Yeah.
And if they were better than Jaquan Jackson, then they probably would be ahead of Jaquan Jackson. And I think that's a situation where I'm kind of leaning. Mm-hmm. But again, that is the player making a decision that he's likely not coached to make in that moment. Because the way that Callahan put it, he himself made the aggressive decision.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes you want to hold back and sometimes you don't. Here's my thing is, how many mistakes has he made?
Well, and see, that's the other thing. Now, we'll say this. As far as mistakes have led to fumbling, the decision to maybe run on that one, maybe that is the one. But the other fumbles was him just getting hit. Right. And it hasn't been him dropping the ball.
Right.
It's been that he's been getting hit. Right. So, and those were returnable punts. So you can't really fault him for that decision. My biggest decision has been, my biggest hang up has been that he likes to go horizontal not vertical.
Yeah, I'm not big on that.
And I think he's probably gained way more yards going horizontal than he has vertical all year. And that he has a real hard time on kickoffs deciding when to return the ball and when not to return the ball. And I think he's gotten a lot of, but he's learning, and it's now few and far between, but it's still happening. And maybe there is just a rookie situation there. But also, like, how much time in practice? Because I know that in practices and the CBA, tackling is a real issue to kind of coach, teach, and do all that kind of stuff. And that's why you see a tackling issue across the league. We've seen this defense, as good as it is played, have tackling issues in certain games. But this special teams has a real tackling issue. What can they do throughout the week to get them to do it? Because all these players are also obviously learning defense and offense. And I don't know how much time, and I'm asking just in curiosity, how much time of a practice is actually dedicated to punt coverage and punt returns? Because at the Senior Bowl, it's very little.
Right. No. There is in practice. There's a whole segment, and most of the starters are going to sit down. They're just watching their position. So, no, they have plenty of time. They may not be emphasizing breaking down and make sure you get square, get your hands ready to make a tackle, because nobody's tackling in practice.
Yeah.
So that's the little nuances that sometimes coaches, especially when you have a young team or young players, that you got to continue to remind them. You have a veteran team and a lot of guys down there who've done it before, then it's, they know that they're supposed to be still trying to break down and understand what they need to do. So sometimes you just got to bring a reminder, and especially when you're watching film. You got, you just say, hey, make sure you break down here. You got to get you ready to explode.
And I would assume that's what the coach is doing, right?
No different to the
he's
returner.
Not doing it.
Oh, right. He's got to be doing it. And the returner is securing the ball and when not to. Now, here's what you don't want to do, and this is what a lot of coaches do, is if you give the player too much information, they start thinking too much instead of letting their athleticism take over and make it natural. So that's the part, especially for a returner. I'm not necessarily talking about the guys running down on kickoff and missing tackles, more so that. And then it almost becomes real close to like you're messing with the kicker and the quarterback. And this guy can determine if, you got a job because he can drop a ball and you lose a game. So you got to be real cautious on how you go about it. You got to support him, got to keep supporting him. But if he starts doing snafus again, then you say, So you start coaching up the guy behind him just as much as you're coaching up the guy that's out there. So I'm a real big on support. You get me once, okay, but I'm going to give you one more shot to don't be fumbling like how you did and then secure the ball. That should never happen. You should be able to do this in your sleep. Those guys that do that, they are special people to catch that ball, because when you hear that herd of guys running down there,
I'm sure.
Boy, it is scary. I mean, it is scary. Boy, I was like, I'm not doing that. So, I support them.
When we come back, we're going to talk about the growth that Brian Callahan and Will Levis are having between each other and their relationship. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone. Hour 2 of Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045 if you want to talk Tennessee Titans. And Blaine, I want to shift it over to talking about Will Levis's development. And like I said earlier, I'm going to be bringing it up all the time, but reading how Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Mike McDaniel all treated their different, even Matt LaFleur, all treated their different quarterback situations and how they've kind of viewed quarterbacks and all this kind of stuff. After reading the book, I put the book down, maybe it's Domingo Margaritas and the book, but I was thinking, I think this Callahan-Levis thing could at least work these last few weeks leading into 2025 and give you enough hope for 2025. Not the hope that we had last year of like, oh man, look at all these amazing throws, but like the hope of quarterback development. And we talk a lot about, the scheme and Will Levis's progression, but Brian Callahan being able to develop a quarterback like Will Levis, who had as many flaws. But right now, when he's able to throw, he throws quickly. He's got a completion percentage way up. Were two big things that we know that he needed to work on. Now he's being a little bit more comfortable with the explosives being filtered in. He's taking those shots a little bit at more opportune times. But that goes to show you the quarterback development of Brian Callahan. And there were a couple of quotes, just real quick, that I want to read from Albert Breer's Sports Illustrated article today, where he talked to Will Levis after the game, exchanged some messages with him. And this is what Will Levis had to say. As a quarterback, you have to know that everyone's got trust in you, and that gives you the ability to go out and play free and with confidence, Levis told me after the win. That trust never wavered. Callahan's been by my side since preseason. We developed alongside each other. I'm proud of him with how he's handled the last few weeks with me and how we've gone out and executed. Bottom line, and this is what Albert Breer's opinion is, bottom line that Callahan is getting the Titans there with Levis this soon. Whether Levis is the long-term answer or not is great news for the franchise and for whoever is the long-term answer, whether it's Levis or someone else. But I think it's interesting because that's something that we've talked about with the benching of Jaquan Jackson in the middle of the game. You talked about with Dylan Sampson, like who does that all serve? And Brian Callahan, for better or for worse, has always maintained if he is healthy, he's our guy. This season's about Will Levis. And I think that has gone a long way for a guy like Will Levis to hear that while he's on the bench, to be able to see it and see everything from a different perspective. And right now, it's all starting to click. If it continues to click, that's really a testament to not only just Will Levis, but also Brian Callahan and their ability to grow and get the most out of each other.
Yeah, and that same thing applies to all positions, especially key positions where it's a specialty, whether you're a kicker, quarterback, punt returner, the guys, so I think there's a different way you have to go about that kind of support to those positions. It's more so the positions, not the actual player. So the player's personality doesn't come into play there. It's knowing how to deal with that personality, but you can really tweak those positions like no other to me. Now, if it's an offensive lineman, D lineman, safety, linebacker, running back, those don't really matter, wide receiver. But those key positions, it's really tough because they can win and lose you games. That's why you must handle those with the kids' gloves, I would say, and having dialogue and conversations more so than, school, let's get after somebody for making a mistake or making a decision. Just say, hey, man, we got to make sure we secure the ball first before we go. So let's ready, rock and roll, and then they survived it. So also it's a good teaching moment, especially when they return it. But when it comes to quarterback, his support, I thought they played that right down to the vest. It worked out seamlessly as I thought it would, only because I looked at Levis's work ethic. When he was injured, and I referenced me being injured and how much I learned from the sideline and not being a quarterback, just a quarterback of a defense.
Yeah.
But nothing like being a quarterback. So, he learned and he said and assessed. So that tells you he's good at not only assessing, but also coachable. So then he put the work in. And then so now I think he's out there performing at a level where now you had to go out there and do it. He's done it. Now let's see how consistent and streamlined you can be. I think now if I'm evaluating him where he's at today, I think he just need to most of the time, go through one read, especially when you're playing a really good defense, especially your front. You know your offensive line is going to have a little bit of trouble. Go through your one read and then get to your outlet quickly. Or if not, just take off. Now, certain things you can improve during the season, which is I was talking about pocket presence or more feel. It's like I think he feels the first, and then it's the second move where you're moving up and you're still keeping your eyes at the prize, going through your progression reads. If not, take off. So there's still layers to where he can continue to improve, but the support he's gotten from, the head coach and the organization to see if he can still be the quarterback of Lisa next year is still a big possibility. And guess what? That would be Eon's world thankful that they had buy another year when this is not a really good quarterback draft. So we shall see if he can continue this, and hopefully he doesn't have any, serious dips like he's in the stock market, and then all of a sudden you get right back to where we started. So we'll see if he can continue. But you got to tip the cap to Callahan. He's been steadfast the whole way in supporting his quarterback.
And his feel for the game has improved as well, Brian
as
Callahan.
His play calling.
His play calling yesterday, I thought was, there was a few things that I'm going to nitpick and stuff like that, and I think rightfully so. But for the most part, I thought that the plays that were called were good, and the execution for the most part from everybody from wide receivers to Will Levis and
they
Tony
outcoached
Pollard.
him. Well schemed on the offensive side of the ball.
It was really good to see.
The double move with NWI, they saw in tape. Oh, the safety's been very aggressive. We got him.
And I think that was the play there was a similar play in the Los Angeles Chargers game, so they built on that play for this game. So something they put on tape, they put a new wrinkle, and that's layering. And I think that is a good sign for Brian Callahan, who I've been a big fan of. I've never had really issue with the scheme or anything like that. It's been more so execution, but also his feel for the game. And I thought this week had a pretty good feel for the game of when to go for it, when to try certain things, when to run, when to pass, all that kind of stuff kind of clicked together. And I thought was interesting also is that we talked about Will Levis just trusting his guys, believing in his guys to make a play. And he even said that. He said yesterday after the game, I just let the guys finish. I started, I let the guys finish. And I think that mentality right there can go a long way. And Brian Callahan said today, it's time to take it to we want to see that next level from Will. Yeah. And I think that's a good challenge to say, hey, you've been improving. You've been looking good. Now let's take it to the next level. Let's keep going. Let's keep building on these good performances. And that's what they've been doing these last 3 weeks, and they're going to keep doing it. And I think what you're seeing is that faith that Brian Callahan had, and I think going back to the offseason, that excitement that Brian Callahan had about Will Levis, I think he thought these last few weeks were what we were going to see at the beginning of the year. That's what we all wished we were seeing at the beginning of the year for sure. But now that he's seeing it now, I think that is something that's going to instill confidence in not only just Will Levis, but for Brian Callahan to open up the playbook. Right? I mean, you can maybe now add a little bit fewer, you can add more wrinkles as you go, more layers to plays. And I think that's a really good thing. You could do certain things now that you've seen that Will Levis can execute certain plays and certain throws in your offensive scheme that I think you can start layering in even more. And I think we're going to see Brian Callahan get more and more comfortable as the year goes on, as well as Will Levis right now.
Well, I think they did a great job of scheming up versus a team with a great front four and knowing it was going to be a tough task for the offensive line. So depending on who your opponent is, based off their strengths and weaknesses of your opponent, do you kind of give him a little more free reign? But I think he's developing this confidence. That's what happens when you start having success as a young player. Your confidence builds to this level that you feel like you can't be broken even when you have a bad play. Yeah. So I think that's where I'm seeing that come from. And then I think the players around him are playing better and they're starting to see and believe in all the things that's going on with this new offense and with their quarterback. And it's a great thing to watch. We're seeing a quarterback develop right before our eyes. And we don't know where it's going to go. But, man, just seeing the development is pretty cool. And just, it's just unfortunate that it took to this point. It's chemistry.
Development is not linear.
Yeah, and then different people. Yeah, and then I still believe D-Hop. I love D-Hop, but it didn't matter which player it was going to be, but somebody had to be extracted from that equation so the roles fit. Because Ridley got paid big dough, and he was always going to be number one because that's why they paid him. And I think that's why he threw the pick six to Zaire. He threw the D-Hop because he's comfort level. Now who is his comfort level? NWI? Oh, really?
Yeah.
Boy, we don't even know now because everybody's fitting into their
that first
space.
half, they were all being fed.
Yep. And then he's just letting the offense work itself. He's going through his progression reads and then making decisions. So I think that's the maturity level of growth as a player, and it looks good just to watch. The offense. So I'm hopefully we'll continue to see some form of that every game.
He's gotten calmer, and I think that's a big thing as well.
Like that. Yeah, his temperament. Yeah.
And that was a big thing McVay talked about Jared Goff. For all his faults, that dude is just ice chill level the whole way through. And there's plenty of opportunity for him not to be in some of these games, and he is just chilled the whole way through. And if we've always talked about if Levis could be chill the whole way through, then you're going to see him overcome some mistakes, and he's going to surprise you. And this was the game that you saw that. Now you got to build on it. When we come back, we're going to talk about the sacks. We're going to go through all 8 sacks. I'm going to tell Blaine what I saw, his thoughts on that. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Store. 615-737-1045. You want to get in on the conversation. We'll be talking about the sacks that Will Levis took yesterday, who's at the fault, what I saw on the film on the All-22. But first, we're going to go to your phone, so 615-737-1045. We're going to go to Chris, who wants to talk Tennessee Titans. Chris, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Hey, good to hear you guys. Ran into Blaine over the weekend. Had a question about complimentary football. I really feel beginning of the season, Titans D really took the load on early, right, trying to cover up for some mistakes the offenses were making. As that offense is kind of gaining ground, gaining momentum, how motivational is that for the defensive side, saying, hey, we got a little more rest this ball game. We can go out and ball a little bit, right? And then you're gaining momentum. It's like, hey, wait a second. Even if we're not playing our A game on defense, if that boy can throw, he might be able to bail us out instead of having head down. I'm like, oh, man, and you can speak to that because you've seen both sides. Mm-hmm. You've been on teams that show both aspects of this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'll hang up and listen. Good to see you guys.
Oh, man. It gives you a boost of energy when you're on the defense. When that was a game probably they played probably the most complimentary all three phases. Even if it was some bad in there, they still, did a good job. So, it gives you energy when you see the offense now start moving the ball and you get an extra 3 downs, 6 downs, 9 downs, man. Woo, you go, oh my, this is working. As I said before earlier in the season, when you start still watching film, you had 90 plays and they had 50 plays, and then at halftime, you going and get some snacks and everything, and they're going to their cars. You're a little perturbed if that continues to happen over time, like 3 or 4 or 5 weeks in a row. Like, hey, man, y'all got to start picking this up. We only got so many plays. If not, we will then start fatiguing as the season goes along. So that's why you got to play it hand in hand. Everybody has to help everybody out. And there's going to be some games where they throw for 50 points, and then there's going to be other games where our offense put up a lot of points. So you got to know it's going to work together. And just got to make sure we get to special teams, make sure we can go a game without having something big happen. Man, our special teams make me a little nervous.
You talk about that Tennessee Titans had time of possession of 34 minutes and 29 seconds, 25 minutes and 31 seconds for the Texans. That's a big swing. When you win time of possession, when you win the oh my gosh, penalties.
6 for 35, 11 for 81.
Adds up and it adds to a team win. And, you're looking at the Tennessee Titans and their drives. They had a 3-minute 27 seconds, then 5 minutes and 59 seconds, 3 minutes and 44 seconds, 5 minutes and 52 seconds, 4 minutes and 40 seconds. Those drives are huge.
Yeah.
That really eats away at the Texans defense, who was playing a lot of zone, who, they were trying their best just to rush with 4, and they were pretty successful at it. You don't have 8 sacks.
8 sacks!
Being good at it. But they were daring the Tennessee Titans to throw. Tennessee Titans threw, and they won. That's a big testament to this entire offense, keeping them on schedule and everything. So I want to go through these
divisional win on the road,
which matters because you still have 4 divisional games left. You're 1-1 in the division.
I don't even want to think. It is
mathematically possible.
Don't say it.
It is mathematically possible the Titans could win the division still.
Oh, my.
They could make the playoffs. It's mathematically possible. Is it mathematically improbable?
Right.
Yes.
One game at a time. One game at a time.
So the first sack, it was on 3rd and 6 in the first quarter, 11 minutes and 38 seconds. They lost 2. So I looked at this play, and I feel like if he was Lamar Jackson, maybe he would have been able to take a different angle, because Levis bailed on this because everybody's watching the broadcast, and I saw everybody's reaction that he bailed on a clean pocket. And it's not really a clean pocket because Radins is getting pushed into his lap, his point of view, and he was already facing the right side of the field because he didn't really progress. So maybe there's where you put a little bit of blame on Levis that he wasn't progressing. But everybody was covered very well. They had I think they dropped 8 in coverage to 4 or 5, if I'm not mistaken. So they had a lot of people in coverage, obviously 3rd and 6. And so his field of vision, everybody's covered up. He drops his eyes, sees the guy almost in his lap, and just takes an immediate rushing lane. What we normally, I feel like, would have seen is maybe Will Levis not see that guy, or, not get to, instead of turning a negative 2-yard loss, which is what it was, into like a 7-yard loss.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it ended the play, but he tried to make sure that they didn't put himself, out of range to do whatever they needed to do. So it's really that to me is like a coverage sack and more on Dylan Radins than it is on Will Levis. But that is Will Levis has some blame, but really we got to remember that this is Will Levis, not like Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. Like, we can't ask him to do something that he's not known to do.
Right, it hasn't shown it. It was a bull rush. I remember the play you're talking about. Dylan Radins, he got all up in his face, where Will couldn't see. Yeah. And actually, that's where his first, thought was his first read, and he couldn't see it.
They covered it so well.
And he was covered, so I'm glad he didn't try to force it, even though he couldn't see it. Then I wanted him to be a split second sooner to then burst right behind, Radins' butt and get more positive yards, even though it was just a 1 or 2 yard loss there, and it was counted as a sack. That's what I'm talking about. Those are little things, and that's being really picky. But that's something that could have changed the game or gave them better.
And I'm sure that's what they're picking at, right? I'm sure they're probably saying the same thing.
Still a positive play. You didn't do something crazy, but at the same time, man, Dylan Radins, you gotta hold your fort a little bit and anchor down. That was a tough one there, man. But it happened from right off the bat. I mean, he couldn't even see. So I was like, man. And then he looked at Dylan Radins like, hey, man, and started running. So he took his eyes off the prize, which is his receivers. And he was like, I'm out the gate. So let's make that decision sooner. Feel it, move, and let's go. Because if he would have drifted out left or right, I think he might have got sacked and lost even more yards. He couldn't lose a whole bunch of yards on that. Man, might have took him out of field goal range. That's why I said Nick Folk, man, he was the savior of the day. With those 3 long field goals over 50 yards, that was pretty impressive for someone who throughout his history is more automatic inside of 50 than outside of 50.
So second quarter comes around. That's when they have 6 sacks in the second quarter, by the way. 6 of their 8 came in the second. So the first one was 1st and 10, and this is when they lost 6 on the sack. Latham just got beat handedly by Danielle Hunter. Levis luckily was able to secure it because I really thought he was going to fumble it with the way that Danielle was coming in almost untouched, and he wasn't even expecting it from the blind slide. And he held on to it because I surely thought it would have been a fumble even if he tried to throw it. Like, he had almost a lane to be able to do it, but if he would have came back, that would have been a fumble.
Oh, my.
It would have been bad.
I know.
And listen, had Latham held up on that play, there was a big play to Ridley where he was looking and Ridley was getting open. That's where he was going to go. Big play left on the field because J.C. Latham just got manhandled.
Well, he got to go against a big-time
Hunter. You're right.
Big-time pass rusher, proven big-time Pro Bowl player who has multiple moves and counter moves, his spin move to his dip and rip. I mean, man, he showed, oh, man, I was getting a little nervous there for Latham. And one time Latham tried to short set him, and catch him off guard, and that didn't even work either. So I was like, oh, my gosh, this is going to be, man, something we're going to have to really pay attention to. And Hunter, they didn't try to put him on the other side. He was like, oh, no, this guy's a rookie right here, too. I see a lot of holes in his game that I can take advantage of being a veteran guy.
And you expect Danielle Hunter to be able to do that.
No doubt. So, hopefully Latham can learn from this because you've seen how he's progressed throughout this season. So I wanted to see him against some big-time passers so you can continue that, grow and learn as a player because then he's going to be a really good player, probably a Pro Bowl player here in the next 2 or 3 years. So I think he's progressing at the right rate. Now he's going to be fired up to say, hey, I can handle the big-time boys. You got to learn and see what happens. But, yeah, that was tough sledding there, man. Hey, Hunter is a really, really good player. And Anderson, too, even though he's a young player on the side. And he got him one time, too. And I was like, dang, man, didn't y'all practice each other all the time in one-on-ones? Come on, man. Come on. We got to get him, man. That's, second year versus 1 year. So, yeah. So that's tough, man. Hey, I felt like they were a little overwhelmed. But, man, Will Levis under duress. I feel like sometimes he plays at his best.
Yeah. So
I was waiting for the run up in the pocket and just launch it.
Right. That's what we were kind of missing. I think he thought he was going to be able to get through some of these holes that he ran up into to get a big blocking lane or a big running lane.
Yeah.
So the next one is when Tommy Togiai, I guess that's how you pronounce it, got close to a sack. And if he would have stepped up into the pocket and dumped it off to Pollard like he intended, because he intended to do it, then he let the pressure get to him, and he could have stepped up because it's outside pressure from NPF. It would have been a chunk play, and this was on 1st and 10. So this is the plays that you want him to make on 1st and 10. This was kind of felt like he was an afraid to screw up kind of play. And Latham also wasn't really staying engaged with his guy. So still could have been a sack or forced incompletion, but the better probability is that if he would have stepped up into the pocket and made the play, instead he chose to step up and run, he lost 2 yards instead of getting a chunk play. So that one I do put on Levis. That was the third sack in the second
quarter?
Second sack, second quarter, third sack overall.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that was when I was getting real like, dang, man, we can't keep getting sacks.
You're right.
That exact play. But he got to get to this, he got to get. There's a couple of them. I felt like he could have got rid of the ball. Whether they were
that one was really on him, I felt.
Yeah.
Because he was going to go to Pollard, and then he let that pressure that was coming from the outside. You could have stepped up in your pocket. You may have gotten hit while you threw it. Maybe. But if you would have been able to get it to Tony Pollard, more than likely, in my mind. And that's a play that I think that, because it was 1st and 10, and he talked, and Brian Callahan talked about that today. I think this was the play he was talking about. The next one, a minute left in the second quarter, 2nd and 7. He loses 2 yards, and this is the one where an NPF loses in like 2 seconds. And the defender flushes Levis out to the left. He had two receivers. They were covered, so even if you are not comfortable making the throw, you could have thrown at their feet because you were outside the pocket. And then if there were no real plays, you could have thrown it out of bounds because you're out of the pocket. Instead, he thinks he can outrun the rusher. He's being pursued, and he loses 2 yards, and it goes front. It could have been a 3rd and 7 at the worst.
Or was it Anderson?
I think it was Anderson.
Okay.
It could have been 3rd and 7. Instead, it ended up being 3rd and 9. And I know that doesn't sound like a big difference, but that is a growing pain that he's got to start figuring that out.
It's situational
he's not
football.
A throwaway guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to understand you live for another play, throw it away. That's why I always talk about the Peyton Mannings. All the great ones, they understood that. And like, they're not going to win every play, but boy, when we
even
win,
Mahomes,
we going to win.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
The other one, the next one, this one's on Latham. Latham gets pushed into him, like physically into him in about 2.1 seconds. Like really quick, gets pushed right into him. Levis tries to step up, but because Latham is in his lap, they trip. And Levis,
I remember this play
he
now.
stumbles, and he tries to stop and catches enough momentum to turn, and he does. He ends up stopping and being able to catch enough momentum to launch himself forward to what could have been a 9-yard loss and turns into a 2-yard loss.
Yeah.
Chunk play to be had if Latham didn't trip Levis. Brunskill's man ended up getting him for the sack, but really Levis tripped.
Who was open?
I believe his Tony Pollard was open.
Oh.
So I believe that's who it was on that particular play. So again, not Levis's fault, and it may look like it, but he's getting tripped up and Latham's getting pushed in his lap. So that's kind of where I'm at right there on that one. And then follow that up, because that was the next play is the 2nd and 10. They lose 8 on this one. Latham gets obliterated by Will Anderson, plain and simple on the inside.
Bama on Bama crime.
Yeah, Bama on Bama crime. And was going for the end zone shot to the right where Bryce Oliver did get behind his man. Do I know if Will Levis would have made that throw or not? I don't know. But there was a shot that he was looking for, but Will Anderson just came in on that inside move on J.C. Latham. Oh, obliterated. I felt bad for Latham this game.
There was some time like,
oh, man.
We got to see you against a polished, bona fide Pro Bowl
and
guy.
Bryce Oliver, we're talking maybe 5 yards on his man, streaking in the end zone alone. There was, it would have been a hard throw to make, but you expect your quarterbacks to be able to make that throw. But Bryce Oliver, man, he was going down the hash marks, had that enough space between him. I mean, they just bailed on his assignment. The zone, he zone beater right there. Go back and watch that play.
By the way, I wanted to say this. I like what I've seen out of Bryce Oliver every time he's gotten a game. Almost to the point in this thing, he hasn't had the experience that I think if they lose NWI in the offseason, he can be that guy.
Yeah.
For that replacement, for that third guy, I think. And then now you can focus maybe on getting a slot guy or something.
Yeah.
And when Boyd, he's a free agent as well. So I've seen enough that I think he can do it. He's got a confidence in the air about it.
I feel like I've seen more out of Bryce Oliver than a former first-round pick that's currently on IR. Just saying.
Oh, yeah, he's better than him. I hate to say that, but I'll tell you that about at dinner.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Okay, so the final sack, the 7th sack and the final sack of the second quarter was the busted screenplay. Chig stays engaged with his man, and it's a design screen to Chig. And I will say I do not like the play design because Chig, the screenplay is going in front of where the line of scrimmage, in front of the center. Yeah, middle screen.
By the tight end.
And the other two linemen are way ahead of already where Chig's at. So likely, and they're not engaged. So likely this ends up being an ineligible man downfield.
So the timing was off.
Timing was way off because Chig stayed engaged too long. He could have easily just ran right around Will Anderson because Latham had him. This was one time where Latham had Will Anderson. And he kind of stayed engaged with him in turn. And by the time that he, gets his last limb off of Will Anderson, here comes Danico Autry straight down the middle, arms up.
Yours truly.
And then as half a second later, here comes Daniil Hunter swallowing up Will Levis. There's nowhere for Will Levis to go. That would have been a hard throwaway throw too, because I don't think he was far enough out of the back of the pocket for it not to be anything. So I kind of put that one on a little bit of bad play design, but really that is on Chig.
I would agree with you too on that. I would have, if you're going to do a screen, just do the screen where he's chipping on Hunter, and then you just turn around and throw it to him.
Yeah,
and then get some positive.
Yeah, let him maybe go work the middle of the field instead of having him wait to get over into the middle of the field. Yeah, because their pass rush was really fast. They were going to mess up the timing and everything. That's what screen plays are all about. Yeah, it's about timing, deception, and everything else. And oh man, we're really trying to block you, but we're not. Slip and nope, they were just zoom. There's no time here. This defensive line, this wasn't the one to try that play on.
Maybe not the middle. That's why I said outside. More tight end-ish type screen.
That one was a peculiar, and I was like, was that supposed to be a screen play? Because my initial reaction was the offensive line was way down the field.
I still wanted him to. So once he saw the time was off, he got to know to throw it in the dirt though, at. Even though Chig hadn't even turned around,
just right on his back. I guess
I would have hit him dead in the head or butt or something. But throw it, bang. I got to get rid of this thing, man. It's hot potato.
The last sack, which was in the fourth quarter with 14 minutes and 16 seconds left, was a 1st and 18. And so they've already lost some yardage due to a penalty, and they lost 9 on this one. Now, Levis had a few outlets and didn't pull the trigger. It feels like to me he was going a little big play hunting, and so he didn't pull the trigger, even though he had many outlets in front of him. And the play would have been called back anyway due to holding. So at least maybe you get a redo on first down if you would have at least, attempted the pass, but he did not attempt to pass, and they took the sack over the penalty and a loss of down. So that's where that situation awareness, where I feel like he's big play hunting, a little bit of Will Levis, is right there. And so that's cost doing business with Will Levis. But again, you're trying to make sure that he takes the big plays at the right time.
Yeah. And that's where you're trying to coach him up on it, but not over coach him. And that's really difficult. Because you don't want to take who he really is out of him. You just want to be able to say, hey, let's be selective here and understand the situational football. And that's being a true bona fide quarterback. So those are the little things. And we're getting really picky in the weeds here, but
I think there were 3 obvious ones on Will Levis.
Yes, yeah. So we got to, give him his kudos and his flowers, but at the same time, he still can continually improve on some of these things that most polished quarterbacks have. We're asking him to be polished when he's only in his second year. So we're trying to see, and then if he can then stabilize that and do this all the time, oh man, I think you could have some special. Really hard to do. Yeah. Easy for us to sit here and watch film and evaluate and say, do these things. Much more difficult in game and under duress like he was. And that's one trait I could say, man, he can play well under duress. I'm stunned, man. So I like his temperament now, how he's going about his business. He still shows us the fire, but yet it's not over the top like he's a linebacker or running back going to run over somebody. So you got to be this calm, cool customer because you have to focus. So I think sometimes he still loses a little bit of focus in his reads and progressions. But I understand, man, when you get sacked 8 times, better him than me because I might have took off running. I better been looking at the rush the whole time.
Yeah. and really, what we talk about, he has to start making these decisions quicker, whether throw it out or run it, and because you got to have that alarm going off. So, listen, I get that there's some situations where it looks like he's running, but that's the alarm going off. Sometimes if we're going to complain that he doesn't have the alarm going off, but then he does have the alarm going off, and rightfully so.
Yes.
And he's making some of these sacks be a little bit less. We have to at least give him his props for that, too. To me, he hasn't been drifting as much, I feel like. I think that's been corrected, and that hasn't been really talked about.
That's tough to do in the season.
And I think that he's kind of fixed his drifting issue a little bit. And I think that there are times where I feel like this week in particular, there are 3 sacks pretty much on him that we can agree. But I think for the most part, I still think that's an improvement. And I saw enough improvement. I'm like, okay, maybe he can fix this during the season, because I kind of feel like it's a really hard thing to fix during the season. And to me, it's kind of maybe he can.
Yeah. I'm getting super excited, but trying to hold back just a little bit because you see where he's progressing. But let's don't go get too ahead of ourselves here. You know, if I'm coaching him, this is kind of I'm talking to him, but like, hey man, you're still doing a great job. Keep doing what you're doing, paving the pavement. These are little things that you can do throughout a game to help us in the offense. Sometimes we put you in tough situations. Whether it's the line, and then we know they're going against some big time rushers. 1-on-1 is going to be quick game, and it's hard to hold up. And sometimes you have to take off run. Sometimes you're going to throw it at the feet. Sometimes you have to throw it out of bounds.
Yeah.
So those are quick decisions.
He's not known for his throwaways.
Right.
That's been a big thing for his high school. He does not throw it away. And of course, at the beginning of the year, he was throwing it away to the other team. When we come back, we'll talk more about Will Levis and what to expect from here on. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop with Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
For many of you who have lived here a long time, you already know Eurofix has been in Middle Tennessee area for your European car repair needs now for 24 years. We've all gotten to watch them grow. And I don't know about you, but I love watching a hometown business take off. Well, we're now proud to announce the 5th location in Mount Juliet for Eurofix on Mount Juliet Road, right across the street from Dairy Queen. And Eurofix can serve you in Franklin, Hundred Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now Mount Juliet. Pretty cool getting to watch a small-town mechanic starting in the barn in his backyard of a single-wide trailer and now grow to 5 locations repairing thousands of cars each month. And at Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. And all you have to do is just give them a call at 844-EUROFIX. That's right, 844-EUROFIX, or you can just visit them online at myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com. But always tell Blaine, said you.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045, the YouTube chat, the F&M Bank chat on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live, wherever you get your Zone TV, has been off the charts. They've been talking to each other, talking to us. We appreciate it. And
is Burke supposed to come back from? I know we weren't going to talk about this.
yeah.
When is he supposed to come back from? Or what's wrong with him?
Whenever they want to open up the window.
What's wrong with him?
I think it was a hamstring, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
when he went down.
Must have been really bad.
Cheeto, by the way, we should talk about this at the
70
top.
yard.
He's they're opening up the window. Does not mean that he's going to play, but they're opening up the window.
They don't know who they're going to sit because they don't want those guys.
I guess you would sit Darryl Baker Jr., right?
Well, that's probably the route you go because that's easier because he's a vet. But I'd let it keep rolling and just ease him in slowly but surely, see if he can hold up. When you're talking about it was a calf, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's tough for your corner.
But I want to talk about this because they were kind of talking about this, and obviously the Texans rivalry is pretty big. You know, the Houston and everything. A couple of people have thought in the F&M Bank chat that it's a little weird to have Miss Amy in the locker room. Now, she ended up getting the game ball, and they presented it to her and everything. But my thing is, owners are oftentimes seen in the locker room for the post-game speech and everything, and they kind of jet out on their jet, I'm sure. I'm sure they don't stay around and linger. But what do you think from that's a side note. My main question is, and I want to get it derailed, how much of a job saver or seat cooler was this for some of the staff and maybe even Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker? This win over the Texans at home. In the Texans' home.
No, I really, it's how I would run my business. After the decisions you've made now, I have to give them more time.
Yeah, I've been preaching stability this whole time.
I don't think that was part of it in the equation at all in this game, even if they lost it. That somebody was going to, heads are going to spin. Now, after the season, maybe some position groups or, may get, let go, but you just never know. But as far as the people up top and the head guy, head coach, no, I don't think that's even part of the equation. You could see if you're paying attention. Unfortunately, the season's not going the way you wanted in the beginning, but you see the team progressing, getting better, and it all starts with the Levis. So,
and there's no quit.
No, and everybody's fighting. So that means that the coach is still in their ear, and they're listening to them, and they want to win, and they have pride too. So yeah, I don't think that's even. I know a lot of people, especially in the media locally here, want to. Get calls for some heads here after the season and everything else, whether they go in a different direction or not. I think they are going in the right direction, at least by themselves, another year to evaluate Levis. If he keeps on this track, I think he gets another year, and then that's when you say, okay, where do we go from here? If he doesn't develop, then we'll actually have all the pieces for then a new quarterback.
What do you think about did you hear all the crap talk from Hannah McNair and Kyle McNair during their media appearances leading up to this game?
I didn't know. What is it?
They said they don't consider this a rivalry because you'd have to win one for it to be a rivalry. And Tennessee Titans have a winning record against the Houston Texans. Like, they're just out there his wife has gone crazy this off. She's everywhere.
What?
Everywhere this offseason. I've seen these clips of Hannah McNair, talking about the Oilers and the colors and the Titans and throwing shade. And I'm like, the Titans have won 5 of the last 6 games in Houston.
Wow.
So why are you saying that we're the ones that aren't winning games?
Oh, I don't know.
This is insane.
Yeah, well, she was hoping everybody didn't go do their homework. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, this is the internet. Everybody does their homework on the internet.
You can go look that up, ma'am. I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe she was talking at halftime.
Yeah. I don't know. It's crazy. She was on some radio show. There's just Cal. He's usually just sitting there like on a bump on the log while she's just, starting all this. She's a crap talk. Now listen. I appreciate a good crap talker. Like, you want to trash talk, another team, another fan as an owner, I'm all for it. But you at least be a little factually correct.
Yeah.
Jeff Simmons was on Ramon, Kayla, and Will this morning.
Oh, yeah.
So if you guys did not catch that, go get wherever you listen to podcasts. Go search Ramon, Kayla, Will. Go search Buck Rising Show. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop, Zach Lyons, and of course 3HL. Subscribe to all those. So that way you don't miss an episode in case you missed it live. And going to your point about us talking about Brian Callahan, the hot seat, weather, and all that kind of stuff. I never thought his seat was hot, but you never know with how ownership may handle a loss like Houston, especially if it's a butt whooping. But this goes to your point. He said when Brian Callahan talks in a locker room, guys listen and they have his back. Win or lose, he doesn't change and his message doesn't change. And I think that has shown on the field.
Yeah, it shows his support of Will Levis. So that tells you everything. Who's scrutinized more than any player,
right?
So I think they have the right staff, the right pieces in place. And naturally, they need some better players, and they got to continue to develop the quarterback and support him and see where he can go. And then ultimately, if he's not the guy, I'm hoping he makes it to this year, and then next year he'll be, in that window where we will see if he can continue the progression and be consistent. Hopefully we get to that point, and if he is, then he will be rewarded. If not, then they can go in a different direction with a quarterback next season. And that's the best deal because then there will be some quarterbacks available in the draft and all the pieces in place, tackle, right, left, receivers. You still have a running back. Yep. So everything will be right where it needs to be, and they'll be mature in this league 3 or 4 years at that point in time. Man, that'd be superb. And then it'll all click just kind of like how the Texans did last year.
Or when Josh Allen got Stephon Diggs.
Yes, we can. Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of, and listen, look at what's going on in Carolina. I bet Carolina's pretty happy that Bryce Young has played really well, and they were in 3 points of tying the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday.
Yeah, they had to make a field goal to win. I saw him make some tough throws, guys.
He did.
All in his face.
Impressive.
I was like, how could he see that guy? He's my height.
Yeah.
How did he see that guy? He threw to a spot.
And that just goes to me. Maybe there is now the path of. I think maybe the NFL is figuring out how to bring along these guys, these young quarterbacks. Real quick, your safety, Mike Brown yesterday in the end zone, hesitated.
Yeah, he did.
Do you think he was keeping that hit from last week in the back of his mind, or do you think he saw, because he was looking at the eyes of the quarterback and there was some hesitation there, but it was more to me of his processing of the play.
Right.
And I'm not looking for him to go and make a hit. I'm just looking for him to crowd that passing lane and make a play on the ball more than anything. Yeah. So what did you think about that?
I would completely agree with your analysis there, but the final piece to that is I think he knew he could have launched and even turned his head. I think he just thought he wasn't going to launch. And I'd be really curious if the NFL still fined him. So I want somebody that's in the locker room all the time to ask him that question, did he get fined for that hit?
Well, usually that would have came out by now by somebody, at least Adam Schefter or someone, because they always go on those tweet storms on Saturday or something that everybody gets fined.
Well, by most, everybody thought it wasn't a justified penalty. So sometimes it doesn't always work out like we think it should, and they still fined him anyway because it was called.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I don't think he got fined, but I'd love to know.
I'm sure they got that little apology email, and I'm sure that was printed out, lit on fire, and then printed out another one and threw it away. I mean, what good is that? What good is that apology?
That's the difference between him and me. I would have launched and hit him anyway.
Yeah.
Because I would have said, the ball may have been come at least, and if I get a penalty, they just, they just keep it moving. But
I just wondered how much that actually.
I think it was. It was. I think it was.
It'd have to be a little bit, but again, you don't have to go and make the hit. Just go in the area to make a play on the ball because he had plenty of time. My feeling was he had plenty of time to get over in that area to at least maybe make C.J. Stroud second guess throwing it to Nico. Instead, he was looking at something. He looks over there and he feels like it's kind of like Will Levis. He looked at, he's about to do it, and then he looked away, and then he came back to it. And he was
the free player, so he thought he could try to get there. And then once he saw, it's going to be bang bang, I don't want to even launch.
Yeah. Man, that was tough. That was a tough one. And that's where the NFL and the refereeing and all that stuff gets involved, and it's just kind of like,
tough job.
Man, it's just messy. Well, that will do it for us. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone. Coming up next, we have 3HL, and it has been great. Tomorrow we have Coach Mack on the show.
Yes.
It feels great to be back.
Glad to have you
Unfortunately, it's gloomy and cloudy. Where's the sun? I'm just so used to it now.
You're supposed to bring it with you.
I'm supposed to bring it with me. Other than that, in the meantime.
And in between time.
Peace.